Hi everyone. Today we're going to go over Ixl Assignment B8A. Add, subtract, multiply, and divide integers. Before we hop into Ixl, let's go over our rules and have a little graphic real quick. So this page right here shows us all of our integer rules. If you don't already have notes on this in your notebook, either pause and jot these down, or better yet, if you have a printer, then take a screenshot of this or print screen this so you can print it, because integers are something that are not going to go away. So having that reminder up there for you to reference until you get really good at them is a great strategy. If we look on the left here, the main side of our poster, we can see that we have in purple our two different rules for adding. Notice that it explains the rules in both word form and it has a couple examples. Then on the right here, it tells us how to subtract. I've given you a little bit more information on that keep, change method off to the side. And then at the very bottom in green are our rules for multiplying and dividing. Now, I'm going to give a little plug here for another video. Either right now, if you know, hey, I got the multiplying and dividing. The only thing is just making sure I remember that those are the multiplying and dividing rules and the adding and subtracting are different. But adding and subtracting, that's where I struggle. Hopefully this video will help, but if you realize that you're like, nope, I still need a little bit more help with adding and subtracting integers, there's another video that goes over only adding and subtracting videos and adding and subtracting integers. And what makes that video so cool is it has 3 different strategies. So if the strategy I use in this video isn't clicking for you, watch that one, because I'll show how to do it using a number line, and I'll show how to use it my new favorite way, which is counters. So that could be something that you could either go and watch now or watch at the end of this if you realize that you're still not quite there on understanding the adding and subtracting integer aspect. All right, I've talked enough. You've had enough time to take a picture of this, or heck, it's a video. You can pause it. So let's head on over to Ixl and practice operations with integers. All right, couple quick Ixl reminders before we get into this. Remember that when you're on Ixl, you always want to make sure before you begin working that you are truly signed in. It should say welcome and then your first name and last name. If it doesn't say that, then you're not signed in. Second little reminder is there's more than one way to find an Ixl assignment. If you're not really sure how to find it, the way that I do is plug the code in. So at the, in the assignment in OMHS, at the beginning of this video, I said we're working on B8A. So you come up here at the very top to the Ixl search bar and type in B8A, and it will always be that first option because you're putting in the skill ID. Notice that it says matched skill ID. And you can always double check that it's correct by ensuring that the name matches. Click on it and it will load your skill here. Third little Ixl reminder that I'm going to go over is not only do you have these help videos, but Ixl has stuff too, which is nice because maybe you just need to hear it from a different point of view, hear it from a different voice. There's nothing wrong with that. You can click on this and it will let you learn with an example. So it has the step-by-step directions, or you can watch a tutorial and it will pull up a short little video that you could watch. So there's a couple other things that you can do if you're still not 100% sure after completing this video and trying it yourself. All right, I think you've waited long enough. Let's get going here. Our first question tells us to multiply. So we're being asked to multiply 3 times -4. Because I don't want to forget about my signs, I'm going to figure out what the sign is first, and then I'll do the actual multiplication. So our rules for multiplying and dividing integers is if the numbers have the same sign, you keep the sign, and it will always, See, looky there. I even mixed it up with adding. It happens. That's why looking at that reference sheet is good because it can happen even to teachers. There are rules for multiplying and dividing. Let me start fresh. When you're multiplying and dividing, if your numbers have the same sign, your answer will always be positive. If your numbers have different signs, your answer will always be negative. So we're multiplying, which means those rules apply. Our numbers have different signs, a +3 and a -4, meaning our answer will be negative. So no matter what I get, it will be negative. Now that I figured that out, I just kind of ignore the signs and just multiply my numbers. So 3 times 4 is 12. And looky there, we got it right. -16 divided by -8. All right, we have a division. Our multiplication and division rules are the same. If the numbers have the same sign, your answer will be positive. If your numbers have different signs, your answer will be negative. What do we have here? Here they have the same sign. They're both negative numbers, meaning my answer is guaranteed to be a positive number. Now that we know that, do the division. 16 divided by 8 would be 2. And when it's a +2, you can just simply write a 2. We don't need the plus sign at all. All right, now we have a subtraction problem, 7 minus 6. All right, this looks like a pretty normal subtraction problem like we did in elementary school. So 7 minus 6 would just be 1. I'll make sure we can do some tougher subtraction problems, don't you worry. Looky there. Here we go. Subtracting 5 minus -3. When you have a subtraction problem and it isn't a basic one like we just saw, I encourage you to always use keep, change, change. I'm going to compare that to dividing fractions. You know how when we divide fractions, we use the little phrase, keep, change, flip? And using that phrase makes the problem easier for us. It turns this difficult and somewhat impossible division problem into multiplication. It turns it into something that we know how to work with. Same here with keep, change, change. It takes a subtraction problem and turns it into an addition problem, which then means we have to learn less integer rules, and it makes it something that we can work with. So keep, change, change is a good thing. It makes it a little bit easier for us. So to use keep, change, change, you keep the first number the same, which is 5. So we keep that the same. Then you change your subtraction sign to a plus sign. So keep, change. And then our final change is you change the sign of your second number. So you change the sign of the second number to be the opposite. Originally, it was a -3. The opposite of a -3 is a +3. So simply just a 3. Now, this problem looks so much easier, doesn't it? 5 plus 3. We can do that. 5 plus 3 is 8. So there is the joys of keep, change, change. All right, let's do another one. We have another subtraction problem. We're going to use keep, change, change again. So remember, we keep that first number the same. We change our subtraction sign to addition, and then we change our second number to have the opposite sign. So that +5 becomes a negative. All right, this is where you may have different strategies. So if you use the strategy of simply following the rules, our rules tell us when we're adding integers, which we now have, we're adding -2 plus -5. You just simply add the numbers and keep the signs the same. So -2 plus -5, if we add them together, that's 7 I keep the sign the same. It's a -7. If you like to use a number line, you can either, have one in front of you and just use like the end of your pencil to trace it out, or maybe this is one you can visualize in your head, but you start at -2 on the number line, and we're continuing to go down that negative side of the number line because we're adding -5. And that's why our answer is a -7. And then the last little strategy, so this is giving you a preview to help you know if you need to watch that other video, is using counters. So if you use counters, we have 2 negatives, and then we have 5 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, they're all the same. They're all negatives, which means we can just add them all up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 negative counters, which means our answer is -7. When you get a little bit higher into your SMART score range, the main difference is honestly you're just going to have larger numbers. So you may not be able to do them in your head. You may need to work out the addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division long ways on paper. So here we have 82 minus 79. This one doesn't have anything crazy with the integers. So 82 minus 79. Remember, when you're adding and subtracting, you always put the larger number on top. We need to subtract 82 minus 79. Well, in this form of addition and subtraction, we can't do 2 minus 9. We need to borrow. We can borrow from our 8, making it a 7, and this a 12. 12 minus 9 is 3. 7 minus 7 is 0, giving us a final answer of 3. All right, let's try this one. So we're have the bigger numbers, and now we got some positives and negatives here. All right, we have 96 plus -18. Well, I have an addition problem, which means we have 2 rules for addition. If the signs are the same, you add them and keep the sign the same. If your numbers have different signs, which is what we have here, a +96, a -18, then you subtract them and you take the sign of the larger absolute value. So I'm going to start off and just subtract them, and then I'll figure out at the end whether my answer should be positive or negative. So 96 minus 18. Looks like I'm going to have to borrow again because I can't do 6 minus 8. But I can do 16 minus 8, which is 8. And 8 minus 1 is 7. All right, now that I've done this, I need to figure out whether my answer is a +78 or a -78. And we look back at our original problem, and we look to see which number is the larger absolute value. So remember, absolute value, because it is distance from 0, is always the positive version of the number. So we can just look at these numbers like 96 and 18. Well, which one's larger? 96 is 18, and 96 is a positive number, meaning that wins out. And our answer will be a +78. All right, we'll try a couple more problems here because we haven't done too many multiplication and division ones. Let's do one more multiplication and one more division. If we multiply 2 times 12, this is one that you might be able to do in your head, but let's just refresh our memory on how to multiply longhand with those larger numbers. When you're multiplying, instead of putting, sometimes it's the case, sometimes it's you're putting the larger number on top, but more specifically, it's whichever number is longer, whichever one has more digits, because that applies for if you have decimals too. So 12 has 2 digits, that's longer, that's going to go on top. We go 2 times 2, which is 4, and then 2 times 1, which is 2, giving us a 24. Now, should it be a positive or a negative 24? It should be positive. Remember, your rules for multiplying and dividing is if your numbers have the same sign, your answer will always be positive, which is what we had here. But then if they had opposite signs, your answer would have been negative. All right, final problem here. We are being asked to divide negative 200 divided by 40. Fractions are one way that we could represent division. So we need to set this up and work on this long ways. So I'm going to set up my division bar here. And if you say it out loud again, that kind of helps you know how to put it into our division bar here. Because we have negative 200 being divided by 40. So the negative 200, your numerator always goes on the inside, and then it's being divided by 40. So your denominator is always on the outside. Now we're going to do that division, and then we can figure out our sign, or you can do vice versa. If you always forget, figure out your sign first and then do the division. Doesn't really matter as long as you do both steps. All right, can 40 go into 2? Nope. Can 40 go into 20? Nope. Which means I just got to straight up see if 40 can go into 200. If this is something that you know off the top of your head, awesome. If not, then remember there are two different strategies for when you get large numbers in your dividing. One strategy is just trying out different times tables. So for example, saying, okay, well, I'm just going to start off with 40 times 5 because that's right in the middle and see how close that gets me to 200. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 4, oh, looky there, it just happens to be 200. And so there we go, there's our winner. If that wasn't our winner, you could keep trying. You could say, okay, well, then what would be, 40 times 3 or 40 times 7? You can just try out different ones until you find your closest match. That's one strategy. Another strategy is doing that repeated addition. So saying, all right, 40 plus 40 is 80, and then keep adding 40 over and over again until you either reach the number you're looking for or you get as close as you possibly can. But in this case, because I always just start in the middle when I test out my multiplication, start with 5, that helps me know whether I need to go higher or lower. I happen to pick the right one. So 40 can go into 200 5 times, and it goes in evenly, which means I'm not going to have any decimals. I'm not going to have any mixed numbers. We're good to go with the 5. But I'm not really good to go because I need to figure out if it's a positive 5 or a negative 5. What do you think? It will be a negative 5 because remember your rules for multiplying and dividing is if they have different signs. We have a negative 200 and a positive 40. If the signs are different, your answer will always be negative. All right, it is your turn to try this out. Remember, there are a couple other videos that you can watch if you're still feeling a little unsure, or you could try out a couple questions. If you get 2 or 3 wrong in a row, pause the IXL. So basically just stop working on it, watch those videos, then come back to it so you don't get too many wrong in a row and totally tank your SMART score. All right, if you have any questions, make sure to reach out to your teacher or attend a help session. Bye.